No, there could be overlapping dynamics in which one person is abusive in one instance, and then in response, the other person is abusive.
So
So,
then the
like,
line isn't clearly, there is no clear
no, they
line
are.
between
Like,
them.
if Shaylin punches me in the face, and then I throw a pot of boiling hot water on her, we've both been abusive. In her punching me in the face, I'm the victim, and me throwing the pot of boiling water on her, she's the victim. I think in both instances, one is clearly an abuser and the other is clearly a victim.
But when it came to, for instance, in the report, I believe it's
Don't say lav.
Blue Sea.
Oh,
I
Blue
think.
Tea.
Blue Tea. Yeah, sorry.
Is she gonna stumble into the lav? Oh no.
Back and forth of exposing nudes, Destiny's nudes of his genitalia, for instance, because he'd shared images among his intimate friend group of 2 people.
Well, one of them emailed her and told her about it, so I don't know how intimate they were, but yes.
Yes, but then to then share to his thousands of followers.
I don't know if it was
pictures of
just
his
2 people.
genitalia.
I don't remember how many people were in the Skype call, so I don't want to be on record agreeing with you that it was just 2.
Okay.
Maybe you should have looked up
I
anything.
recall it being 2 in the article, but
I think he did say 2 in the article.
in that sense,
Jesus, Max.
for me at least, the idea of the victim and the perpetrator is not clear at all. That sounds like not a matter of somebody being an abuser and somebody being abused. It sounds like a very messy relationship of 2 people being very messy and something that goes public that really ought not to have, because of stupid things that people do in relationships.
Don't let her get away with that, Max.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Take her out, Max. Don't let her do this.
And that was what I felt with a lot of what you relayed in the report, that this was an instance of just how absolutely messy and horrible people can be to each other in relationships, and that the line between victim and abuser was
blurry,
not as clear cut.
Ooh, he's not gonna like
I felt
that.
you were imploring me as a reader to see it as being, and that's where I find it very difficult to empathize with your position and what you are saying, and what you're trying to sort of convince, not me specifically, but I guess your audience, your target audience.
Whoever that might be, we don't really know because he won't give one. But...
Okay.
Or I guess CNN.
Yeah, you said that pretty early on at the outset. You just think these are messy relationships. So the report is about the abusive behavior of Destiny within those relationships. The report is not meant to exonerate the behavior of everybody else. So, if I were writing a report about Blue Tea,
that ability isn't ready yet.
I might even include the same story. Like logging into someone's Twitter account and tweeting out their nudes isn't.
That's not cool, dude.
Would you consider that abusive?
Not what you're supposed to do.
Would you consider that abusive? Logging into
I don't
somebody's
know. I don't
Twitter?
really know enough about
Really?
their relationship.
Maybe that's just something
But
we
you
did
don't know enough
for
about
fun.
any of his relationships.
True.
Oh, okay.
True.
See,
Like,
it
none
doesn't
of
feel
us
like you're. It doesn't feel like you're asking me questions. It feels like you're just saying you disagree with the report. Because you asked. I thought I was going to answer your
No,
question about.
I'm trying to go deeper into this. I can't.
He doesn't
just
want to.
stay
He just
with
wants
you.
yes or no's.
No, you want me
You don't
to
need to
ask
agree
you,
with me.
You want me to ask you questions that you've
Yep.
got in mind.
Yep,
based
like
on
Shaylin.
your idea of what you've presented
Is
and
there,
put
is
into
there
the
a
out.
question about Blue Tea sharing his nudes? What's
Called
the question? Is it
Yes, I
abusive?
did ask you. I asked you.
Yes,
Do you think that
I think
that's
so.
abusive?
I think so. I don't know enough about their relationship or the power dynamics to say for sure, but I think so.
Yes, and then I elaborated and was saying, like, this is the thing. I don't think that we know enough about
I know.
these
You said-
relationships.
I know. You said that. So her sharing his nudes does not exonerate him threatening to destroy her scholarship, and it doesn't exonerate him sharing her nudes.
But does it undermine this idea of this clear divide between the victim
And the
and
abuser.
No, because No, because the divide is between their behavior in a dynamic.
I can't do
Like I
that
gave in
yet.
the example with Shaylin punching me in the face, she's victimizing me. Then if I pour boiling hot water on her, I'm victimizing her. In one instance, she's abusive, and the other, I'm abusive. Now, if you were writing a report about me as a violent abuser, you would of course include this story. If you were writing a report about Shaylin as a violent abuser, you would of course include this story. It's a story in which both of us would be violently abusive.
Not ready yet.
But you're stuck on this like averaging out of like overall as a person who is the abuser and who is the victim. It's not about that though. It's about the dynamics. So if there's stories about 10 or 15 different women who I've poured pots of boiling hot water on, and then I have this, I'm like, well, Shaylin punched me in the face. This other girl kicked me in the balls. This other girl knocked over my TV while I was playing Super Smash Brothers. This other girl crashed my car. Like, I could have an excuse for every time I did that. But if you're like,
Well, that
Max
seems
has
kind
a
of
pattern
important.
of abusive violence, he pours boiling hot water on 15 women, then that report
I
would
feel
be
like I'd
about
want to know that.
my propensity to do this horrible behavior, and the context surrounding the behavior in each instance is relevant to each individual instance, but to pointing out that the trend overall is like Max is a crazy person who pours boiling hot water on women, which it doesn't really matter. So yeah, you can go into any story and you can understand Destiny's motivations for why he's behaving the way he behaves, but the trend I'm trying to show is that when Destiny feels threatened, he reaches for the mob. He reaches for his platform to strike back against his perceived enemies with. And often, if those perceived enemies are people he is either in or has been in sexual relationships with, which in my
Base.
mind makes him more abusive.
Okay.
So going through and pointing out the bad behavior or how shitty each victim, nobody deserves to be treated that way. That's why we call it abuse.
That's
No
not
one
why it's
deserves
called
to be
abuse.
punched in the face. No
But-
one deserves to have boiling hot water thrown on them.
Abuse is when you do
It's
things that
abuse.
people don't deserve.
Sharing nudes and mocking somebody is abusive. Threatening somebody's scholarship is abusive.
Is it always? Okay. Is cancel
That's
culture
not the
abusive?
appropriate channel to address an issue like that.
What is the appropriate channel to address somebody leaking your nudes
Appropriate
online?
channels are
Based on our standards of relationships, this is a very different kind of relationship. This is a public. Destiny has been very clear. I've heard him say numerous times that his relationships are public, that they're not sort of a private thing, that it's sort of like it involves everyone in a weird sort of way, at least the sexual elements of it, the physicality of all of that. So there's very different dynamics and very different rules to this relative to what we would apply to relationships, I feel.
I don't agree at all. I think that's just an excuse to use to involve his. Yeah, he feels safer when he has his fucking cult that he can sick on you when you do something he doesn't like or say something he doesn't like.
Thanks, guys. Keep up the
He
great
shouldn't
work.
be blending his public and private relationships like that. It lends itself to abusive
Who's to
situations.
say that
What about
he
your
shouldn't, though?
girlfriend?
I'm playing devil's advocate with that.
I think it lends
Like-
itself to a lot of abusive
There was no hole here, it's a
situations
crack.
where people are not just privately being abused, but they're being publicly humiliated and dogpiled, and their reputations are being smeared because of interpersonal problems Destiny has with them. It's not an appropriate use
Oh
of
my
his
god,
power.
this thing is so cute.
It'd be like Trump sending the Secret Service to investigate somebody because they hurt his feelings. It's not. You shouldn't settle personal scores with your gigantic platform. And the Blue Tea story is included. I mean, it'd be weird to leave it out, but the Blue Tea story is included to show that this is one of the earlier times that he did that, but he's still doing it.
Like with Lav. Please get to Lav. Please, God, let her bring up Lav. Oh my god, I want to hear that conversation so bad.
Okay, I feel we're going around in circles.
Ooh.
I can't do that yet.
Yeah, I think I'm still inclined to see this as I said, very messy relationships. But I do believe with the
You think I'm wrong?
everybody
Get it.
involved has gotten involved on
Frank
their
Sino
own
PG.
accord and their own agency, and I do
You're just mad because I'm beating this
I
game on
think-
800% difficulty.
the messiness and the drama of it
Which level's
is
800?
known.
Damn!
Okay. Well, now we know what you think. Again, I already know what you think. You already said this.
Okay.
Did this
It
guy
sounds
just
like you
glitch
already
over the
know what I
wall?
think too.
That these relationships are abusive, that Destiny ought to use his platform far more effectively and far more ethically than he has.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at it. Look at how easy this game is for me.
Do you understand how the section of conversation we just had, you said, I said, if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
But then
You
you didn't
said-
ask me the questions that I wanted you
You
to ask
asked me maybe one or two.
And then I got really
But
triggered.
the bulk of the section of conversation we just had was you telling me why I'm wrong.
Please just
Do you
agree with me.
concede that that is what just happened?
No, I don't. Because I wasn't
Oh.
telling you that you were wrong. I was just offering a different perspective, my perspective, and sort
Okay,
of my
do you agree-
critique that I had when I was reading your article.
Do you agree that the bulk of this section of conversation we just had was you telling me why you don't agree with my article? You saying what my article said, and then you saying why you don't agree with it. Do you agree that's mostly what just happened? Since I said if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Mostly it was you telling me that what I said in my article, you don't agree with.
No, I asked you questions. I explicitly asked you questions. You
You did.
answered some of them, not all of them, and then I would critique your answers because that is how discourse happens.
Ooh.
I'm not saying it's not how discourse happens. I'm saying, do you concede that most of what just happened was you telling me why you don't agree with either my answers or what I wrote in the article?
No, I don't concede that.
Ooh.
No, I think I was more interested in you elaborating on what you had written because, as I said, I felt that I didn't hear your voice through
You
what
can hear
you had
it.
written.
You can hear it
and so I was
now,
trying to get. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying
but-
to get now.
It doesn't feel like you are. It feels like every time I start to tell you what I think, you start telling me why you think something different and why what I think isn't true.
No, I'm
So
that
what I-
second qualified. I'm not trying to do. I'm expressing
I'm not saying
what
you're
I
trying.
think.
I don't
I'm
think
That's
not
not what
I
you're
don't
trying to
think
do.
you're
That's what you're
trying to do
doing.
this.
You're just
My
doing it.
experience- well, the reason I'm very frustrated by this conversation is because you're saying we're doing one thing,
But then we're
my
doing
experience
another.
is that we're not doing that thing.
True.
I don't. You keep saying you're
Everybody's
trying to
doing this to
understand
me.
or trying to elucidate.
Everybody says that by just
what I
not
think
doing
you
a
hear my
thing,
voice. But every
they're not
time
doing it. But
there's
they
a
are
moment
doing
where
it.
I might do that.
Everybody does this, guys.
You tell me that I'm wrong. And so if you
I've
were
never
telling
said that
me,
you were wrong.
I know you have not used the word wrong. I think that's shorthand for saying that you are disagreeing with what I'm saying or disagreeing with what I wrote.
Reminder
and
that 2 weeks
explaining why
ago,
you disagree.
Max thought that
I don't
orbiters
have
were
a
going to be
problem
leaving.
with you
Remember when he was
disagreeing.
talking to Lab
But
and he's
what's
like, I think a lot of
frustrating
them
is
are
when
going to
you're
leave?
telling me
Remember
that
that.
you're trying to understand what I think, but actually the bulk of the interaction is you telling me why you don't agree with what I think. Those are different things. So if you said, Max, I want you to come on stream and I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with your article, I probably wouldn't have agreed to the conversation. But and then it would line up with what's happening.
I need
But what you're saying you're doing doesn't line up with what's happening. So it's very frustrating. I don't like being told that I'm being asked open-ended questions so you can try to understand my perspective, when really it feels like you're
enough energy. I don't have enough energy.
just giving explanations
I don't have enough energy.
of
I'm not ready yet.
how you. I mean, you even prefacing, even before you've asked me the questions, you tell me I'm not qualified to say the things that I'm saying in the report.
No, specifically the idea of abuse.
That's
this idea
your
of being a
questions-
narcissist or
I know.
sociopath. Those things specifically.
Your
Not
questions
everything.
are, but that's what your questions are about. So you're like, because you don't have a PhD, you're not qualified to say what abuse is. And then I'm like, okay. And then you're like, so do you think this is abusive? And I'm like, well, yeah. And you're like, well, I don't. Even though I also don't have a PhD in psychology, I'm qualified to say that I don't think this is abusive. I think it's just messy relationships, which is the first thing you said when I got in here. So I'm like, why are you qualified to say it's not abuse? And when am I going to get just stop pretending that you're asking me questions, because you're not.
Okay, yeah, no, but the difference between what we're saying is that I'm saying that I think these things. You're saying that it is this thing. That's the difference.
You're saying it's not.
No, I'm saying I think that these are messy relationships.
Sorry.
There's a difference between what you're saying
I think it is
with regards to this being abuse, with regard to him being a sociopath, or him going to cause me harm.
Far away.
Yes, I think
Which didn't
he is
happen.
going to cause you.
But
It's happening right now.
It's happening again,
you
guys.
said that he will
All the orbiters talk
cause
like
me
this.
harm,
They all
that
do
he
this
will me
destiny
harm.
thing, where they don't just
Said that
agree
he
with me
is a
immediately.
sociopath,
Not enough
that he
energy.
is abusive.
So sorry. From now on, whenever I say anything, just put my name before it. And you'll understand that this is not a formal diagnosis when I'm dealing you and saying Destiny is a sociopath. I don't have a PhD in psychology. I'm not aware of any formal diagnosis that he is a sociopath. I just think he's a sociopath. To my critique about the format of this conversation, which again feels like mostly you saying why you don't agree with me or why I am not qualified to say what I'm saying, that feels like what's happening to me. So we may not be able to agree on what's happening in the conversation. That's what it feels like to me. You keep saying that the conversation is, or parts of it, are you wanting to know what I think about this? And I don't feel that. I don't feel that you do want to know what I think. I feel that you want to tell me that what I think isn't right.
True.
I'm doing exactly what anybody would do when presented with an
Maybe you are.
argument.
I can't.
And don't you think it's
No, I don't
mean,
know
in
that
the
this is
same
what
way.
anybody. I don't know that anybody would say. I'm just trying to understand more about what you think.
You have
I
enough
think there are
energy.
people who feel like what you say, what you're saying you feel. I think would approach the conversation more like, listen, I have to push back on you about this report. You know, I've enjoyed your other work, but I think you really missed the mark here, and I have some tough questions I want to ask you about this, and I have a lot of criticisms I want to make. Then the rest of what you're saying would really fit with that. But to keep framing it as like, I just don't hear your voice and I just want to understand what you think, it doesn't feel like that's what's happening. I understand if you're saying the reason you don't want to just let me say what I think without uncontested is because you don't feel like it's responsible, or you feel like you need to make it clear to the audience that you disagree after everything I say, then like maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. But it just does, what you're saying doesn't feel like it's lining up with what you're saying you're doing. And it's really frustrating.
Do you think in the same way that with sort of Destiny's behavior, his actions, you sort of see this sort of pattern or display of a pattern of sort of the same behavior? Do you think that in the same way that sort of the majority of your interviews with people have gone systematically badly, and most definitely have caused you a lot of frustration? Do you think that that's representative of sort of a pattern of behavior on your part? That's sort of reflective of something that is maybe not to do with the people who are interviewing you and trying to engage and critique you and critique your work and what you've done, but something to do with your own response, your own behavior, your own, I guess, lack of empathy for trying to reach a compromise, as opposed to all of us somehow seeing the world from
Your
Max's
homie
perspective
Farha.
through Max's eyes.
Oh, Jesus.
And then you getting frustrated that we're not seeing
Not
the
enough.
world through your eyes.
Okay, before I answer that question,
Why
I'm
the
glad
fuck
you
is
asked it.
Mira streaming this?
Do you
God,
see
she's so cringe.
why you might feel like you just asked me a question, but I might feel like you just gave me a criticism? from my perspective, that was barely a question at all. It was mostly just you saying that I don't understand conversations
Fuck.
and that I'm blinded by
You know what's happening?
myself.
Wouldn't you like to know?
I'm genuinely interested in. what the
Actually,
answer to
in a
that
day or two you
was a
might, but
question.
probably not.
I need to get closer.
The answer is no.
Ability is
It was a yes or no question, right? Do I think that it might be this other thing? No,
Can I just
don't think
upgrade
that.
these? Oh my god, thank god.
I could expand upon it more, though, if that's not satisfying to you.
Oh, please do. Please do. Yes.
Please do. Expand.
Most people are hesitant to point out what is happening in a conversation because it's rude and weird.
No! Keep your feet on the ground.
This. Oh,
Ooh.
have
Wait.
you seen the girl with the dragon tattoo?
Ooh.
Great to meet you.
No, I haven't.
Well, that's
Okay.
a great
There's
example.
a scene where a guy, the main character, finds out who the killer is, and the killer invites him into his house. And I've talked about this before, but it still really sticks out to me. And the main character just feels too awkward to say no, so he just agrees. And the guy pulls a gun at him, and he's like,
What? This is
He's like,
muted,
"You
right? I'm
knew-
not
you
retarded, am
knew."
I?
and I knew you knew, and you knew I knew you knew, and yet you couldn't say no. You'd rather die than be
It's
rude.
muted. Oh, okay. Oh, nice job.
And I think a lot of us have that impulse.
I
The fact that a lot of us have that impulse.
why were you looking at my friend? Do you like her?
You can call something an interview, and you can
What
call
do you like
something a
about me?
question, and then just
My
make it a
followers?
long-winded critique, basically. I mean,
What-
what
I
did
don't
you
know
just
what
say? You just said like a
means.
bunch of really scathing things about me. You said I don't have empathy. You implied that I'm paranoid and I'm delusional and I'm chasing ghosts. You've said a lot of like really harsh, negative things about me that you're, as a non-psychologist, you're not qualified to say. And as long as you say you're asking a question and you say this is an interview, you say, well, I'm just catching up with you. I just want to know. I just want to hear your voice, Max. As long as you say these things, then there's this pressure on me, like I'm beholden to not say, like, no, that's not what you're doing. That's not what's happening. Now, a lot of streamers have caught on to this. Streamers, what kind of person wants to sit behind a desk with all the safety? You got the camera, you got the chat, you have all this distance. They're not the most intimate. They don't know how to navigate intimate relationships as a general group. I would say this is a trend I've noticed. I fell into streaming by accident. It's not really my preferred method of content creation or interacting with other people.
Mira
But
streaming
a lot of
Farah's call with
streamers are
Destiny
like,
from
I just wanna
yesterday?
hide
Wait,
behind
what?
my desk and have total control over all my interactions with other people. So a lot of conversations
never mind. I
turn
just
into these
understood.
power struggles. Streamers are very conflict avoidant, but they're still struggling for power, so they use a lot of underhanded tactics to gain power, like I believe you yourself are using in this conversation. So oftentimes, the streamer is doing something that does not match up with what they say they are doing. And this is also true for normal people. It's just exacerbated with streamers. The only way to get power back from somebody who is underhanded like that is to point out what they're doing. I don't know if you noticed, if you watched Destiny's stream yesterday at all. He had an argument with Pisco about the
I knew
DDoS kit.
I knew he
And
watched this.
Destiny, Pisco kept pointing out what Destiny was doing. He's like, "Oh, you're yawning. Oh, you're not answering the question. Oh, you're pretending you think this is funny. You're pretending whatever." He's constantly just nailing him, thing after thing after thing after thing.
Destiny
saying, like, "No, you
debate
can't get away with
tactics.
that. I'm going to point out whatever you're doing." And like, yeah, the chat was kind of shitting on him for doing that because you're supposed to just allow Destiny to get away with that.
I like how he points
I'm
out that the
supposed to
chat
allow
wasn't
you
even
to get
siding
away
with me for that.
but I don't want to. So the reason a lot of my conversations, from my perspective, get derailed is when other people are not good at open conflict. They're not comfortable with it. You're not comfortable with conflict. You're not comfortable with somebody just being directly angry at you or you directly expressing that you're angry at somebody else. You don't like that. That's not how you operate. You're more comfortable with like underhanded power plays, from my perspective.
Ooh.
Underhanded
But-
power play.
She got called out.
Very good. By pointing out these underhanded power plays, I can drag you into open conflict where you lose a lot of power there because you're not good at it, and I am. Two, it makes what's happening more
Banshees.
apparent, which benefits me because I think I'm being more direct and honest in the conversation than you are. And 3, it just like kind of ungaslights me. I feel gaslit by people saying they're doing one thing and then doing another. I know it's very normalized, but I really can't stand it. So I end up making a lot of meta comments. And then people feel cornered by those meta comments because they don't want to admit what they're doing, or they genuinely don't believe that they're doing what I say they're doing. But then we can't agree to disagree. Like, I think you might survive this step in this conversation because you might say, okay, well, you think I'm doing that. I don't think I am. Let's move on. Some people can handle that. Other people can't. They just freak out. They need me to think the same thing about them that they think about themselves.
That's true for almost all humans, by the way.
Some people can't emotionally tolerate somebody else thinking an opinion about them that they don't share.
Depending on the strength of the opinion, that's super normal. That's like every human being ever feels that way.
That is my view of why a lot of my discussions go off the rails. If the discussion is an interview, like with Wick was interviewing me, that if it goes off the rails and you kick your interviewee because he won't stop talking about what he thinks, that what better proof that it wasn't really an interview to begin with than that? To me, that proves that the interview with Wick was not actually an interview. It was, I don't know what it was, but it was something else. Because in an interview, the interviewee
I should be able to talk unimpeded.
Just kind of speak freely and answer questions. Pushback, context given by the interviewer saying, hey, just so you guys know, I don't agree with this. That's totally fine. But yeah, so that's what I think. That's what I think is happening in those conversations. But the viewers are not super savvy either, so they don't.
I'm the only one that can see all this.
They don't get what I'm talking about.
Only me.
They're like, oh God, here comes another meta conversation. It's like, yeah, that's because I talk to a lot of underhanded, manipulative people who try to pull shit, and when you point out what they're pulling, they freak out, and it takes forever for them to say like, oh yeah, I guess that wasn't really a question. That was more me just giving like a critique about your mental health. That wasn't a question. You're right. Most people aren't willing to do that. So it takes a long time.
So would you say that I'm an underhanded, manipulative person? Is that what are you saying that?
You're in it. You are doing that right now. That's not fair to characterize you overall that way. I think you're conflict avoidant, and you probably just mostly withdraw.
She just can't handle it. Yeah, true.
But when cornered,
she can't handle the real rawness of Max.
You're talking to me, but you're talking to me while being watched by somebody I'm telling you I think is a dangerous sociopath with a ton of power and an army ready to harass people. And I don't know you that well, but you don't strike me as somebody who would enjoy. Nobody likes being harassed, but you strike me as somebody who would be particularly off-put. Like you were freaked out that people were like calling you or like trying to join our call. Imagine that at times 10 million. I don't think you like it. So you're in just kind of a weird position where it makes sense to me that you are making power plays.
Then why did Max ever agree to stream this conversation?
So I'm not trying to evaluate who you are as a person. I think you want to gnaw your own leg off to get away from Destiny. I will fully support that decision. So I think that people in relationships and situations around Destiny probably end up acting in ways that do not represent their character fairly, which is why I want Brittany Simon to unblock me. I'm like, dude, we were in a bad situation, all right?
He's trying to blame me for him calling Brittany a Nazi cult leader.
Things that you don't regret that hurt me, whatever. Like,
who cares? Let's bond over a hatred of Steven
when they're under this kind of pressure. So it was unfair of me to say that. No, I don't think of you as a manipulative person overall. I think of you as flighty.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I was trying to protect you. I guess you are the audience for the report. I said earlier. I want people to read the report and know that they shouldn't get close to Destiny. And it didn't have that effect on you. So
I'm not close to Destiny at all. I really am not.
If you,
we are. I'm in love with her.
I doubt I'll ever be.
Okay, but it didn't.
I'm in her basement right now. She's my mom.
Have been like warned.
We don't. It's not sexual. It's just like.
I mean, I've always made it clear that I'll talk to anyone.
It's like Lav and Mr. Girl.
My subscribers didn't want me to talk to you at first.
She's my mother from another brother.
Yeah.
Of a different
and
color.
Even now, a lot of them didn't want me to speak to you today.
You wouldn't understand, guys.
Still did.
Why don't they want you to speak to me today?
Uh, you know what everybody says about you. You're unhinged, unstable, obsessed with destiny.
Oh.
Your article's terrible. There's no point in talking about it. You're irrelevant. All of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet you talk to me anyway.
That sounds like a lot of Destiny fans would be saying that.
True.
Are they your audience now?
No, I mean, my audience has actually decreased. I've been losing subscribers systematically for a while. So, no. I don't
What
actually.
percentage of your audience do you think are Destiny fans at this point?
There's no way it's that many. We talked one time. What does he think?
0.01%.
Yeah, what does he think our
probably.
relationship is?
I did not gain any of Destiny's followers after appearing on his stream. If anything, I think that they just because we had a conversation
over the
about
femcel stuff.
my celibacy, and they didn't believe me. I think that frustrated them because. So yes, I definitely didn't make an impression on them, which was fine. It was very neutral. As
Yeah.
I said, I don't think they.
Oh, he
loved me
switched
or
to the
hated
close-up
me.
cam.
I was just another person who just appeared on the stream. And I would believe that in future, if I were to go on the stream, it would be the same. I definitely, yes. I have no qualms with Destiny in the same way I have no qualms with you. And it was just interesting. And it was interesting insofar as sort of, at least when he did start speaking to me, I was under the impression that something bad might happen, and I mean it didn't. So I think that was also why I was interested in talking to you about that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I stand by my
I
statements.
can't do that yet.
I think you should distance yourself. I think if you get an invitation to discuss this on his stream, I think you should decline it politely
Jesus.
and just
What can I do for you?
drift away.
She's not even like an orbiter. She's not even in my solar system. I don't even know if we're in the same galaxy. We're like in neighboring
I think,
galaxies.
that I believe that conversation and discourse is the only way to move
Not
forward
ready yet.
in anything, in a desired direction of some kind of resolution to these things. Because surely that's what we want from this.
Do you think that somebody comparing interior photos of your house to recent real estate listings in your area and then posting your address on the internet is a conversation?
People do this shit to me all the time, bro. You're
That
not
wouldn't be the
special.
conversation that I would have.
I'm saying if you don't want things like that to happen to you,
Then don't be on the
I
internet,
suggest you keep your
period.
distance.
Oh my god. It's so cringe.
Not saying that happens to everybody. Just that popped up in my head when you're like, why don't you want to? Felt like you're saying I'm anti-conversation. I'm not anti-conversation. I'm anti-harassment and abuse. I'm not saying the conversation is going to hurt you. I'm saying if you talk to him and you get involved with him, other things might happen to you.
Oh my
that are not
god. This is like delusional. He sounds like a jaded ex.
People reading URLs on your screen and then frantically trying to join your calls.
That's what every
For
single
example.
person does on the internet in these situations. That's
That's
why you
not
can't.
conversation. That's weird that happened.
It's not weird.
I know a lot of it's because of me, but still. I find it awful, and I think you should find it unnerving, and I think you should back away slowly. But you're not. That's fine. That's just. I just am explaining why I damn do that. So my stance hasn't changed. That's my recommendation.
Well, I thank you for your recommendation.
You're welcome.
Is there anything you'd like to ask?
No.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time.
He's trying to speedrun the lifestyle manipulation? Nah, this isn't it. No, this ain't it. I don't think so. Not that much.
Nor I yours.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I know you may not believe me when I say that, but it's always a pleasure talking to you. Very interesting. Uncomfortable, but interesting.
Well, I can't say the same.
Damn.
I did not expect you to say the same. No worries.
Okay.
All right.
Goodbye, Z.
Goodbye, Max. Take care.
You too.
Okay.
Goodbye Z? Is that like a nickname or?
Oh my gosh, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. There we go. Okay. Right.
Oh, he said goodbye Z's. Oh, goodbye Z's. I thought it was something. All right. Jesus, what a ride.
Open relationships work.
I shouldn't say no.
You're right. You're right. But all I'm saying is, in regards to
Well, hold
this
on.
specific
So,
situation,
what you
I
just
heard
said was
that
not
you
just
could've-
incorrect; it was the most incorrect thing you could have
No,
ever
it's not
said.
the most incorrect thing.
It is the most
heard-
incorrect thing you could have
It's
said.
just hyperbole all the
Because
time.
I've seen it happen in the
Wait,
time.
what
that
did I
wasn't
just say? No,
talking.
no, no, wait, make him
No,
answer
no,
that.
you
What,
didn't
no,
say-
no, make him answer. What did I just say that was hyperbole?
Shut the fuck up, you dumb fucking.
Wait, with the soft A or with the hard R? Hold on. Do you think calling a woman a bitch is kind of similar to calling a black guy the N-word? Is that?
I don't think it's the same.
I didn't say the same, but you think it's kind of similar?
Yeah.
You are literally making every single anti-fan of Mr. Girl wet right now. You are saying you have a right to be on Destiny's subreddit just because you are a fan. You are. You just said that. I'm not talking about you just said the moral right. That it's moral for Mr. Girl sub.
I think that it's good if people are allowed to post on the subreddit. Especially if people can post bad things. Why can't people post good things? Why are they trying to draw a distinction between?
You guys are posting way too much about Mr. Girl. It's getting pretty weirdly obsessive. I am gonna be honest about that one.
Mr. Girl fans and Destiny fans as Mr. Girl. It doesn't make any sense to do any of these things. So if you're requesting that Destiny fans who are also Mr. Girl fans stop posting on.
Or look at what happens when we talk about crack epidemics all over.
Yeah, I do.
these
There
cities.
are men's rights activists.
Where are the
Absolutely.
people talking about? Yeah, but MRAs are universally panned on the internet. They're seen as misogynists, right? Or look
So
at the
then let's
Midwest.
fucking
How long has
support-
the Midwest
you-
been dealing
you-
with things like methamphetamine and stuff? But nobody
Wait.
seems to care about that.
Okay,
Nobody's talking about
I-
these issues.
Talking to Richard Spencer on Friday.
Nice.
I was gonna read his.
It's gonna be a productive conversation.
I don't know.
Oh, how'd your conversation with Vince go?
Pretty bad.
Bad in what way?
I let him rattle off probably false economic statistics
About black people?
about everyone
Okay.
for too long before telling him I didn't care. And I think it came off as probably ignorant to him. Also, he demanded to know if I was a pedophile for like 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And I refused to answer.
Talk to me.
Okay.
Right back.
And then I demanded to know what kind of porn he looks at, since we're talking about our sexual proclivities, which is not really a fair comparison.
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't interested in talking about so I went into it being like, I want to understand and probably refute the connections you make between whatever's in your binder, and so therefore I should be racist. He was only interested in, here's what's in my binder, and since that's what's in there, it's obvious why anyone would be racist. And then he told me that he thinks that I think all the same things he does. He said if my neighborhood, if a bunch of black people moved into my neighborhood and it became 45% black, I would move out. So then I'm like, well, like, we can't really compare our like ideas or views here if you literally don't believe mine.
It's got to be really frustrating when you talk to somebody they don't believe what you tell them, huh?
Yeah, I can't fucking imagine what that must be like.
But yeah, no, I heard that part of the conversation. You talked about living in New York and everything, yeah.
I would be fine if he didn't believe me, but if then we could, like, I accept that he doesn't believe me, but then we could, you know, still move forward. Because, like, will you allow me to say what I think based on you not believing me, whatever. But no, he wouldn't do that. And then I wanted to ask him some hypothetical questions, which he did answer. I asked him if he, instead of zapping, I said, would you Thanos snap all of the non-white people out of the country to a paradise if you could? And he said yes. And then I said, if instead of doing that, if you could just Thanos snap all the criminals and low IQ people out of the country, which would be a more accurate, like, category. I said, like, you're saying there's like a 15% IQ gap between like whites and whoever, right?
Yeah.
What if you could just zap out all of the stupid people and leave the smart black people? And he was like, yeah, I guess that would be better. I would do that.
Oh, it's cool he admitted that. Okay.
Yeah, so then I was like, okay, so I guess you're not really a white supremacist. You're like a smart supremacist, but you're using racism, which is this like pretty loose correlation tool instead. It just seems cruel to me and like inaccurate and unethical, and like you're admitting it's not even the real goal. I don't know, it was weird. And I wonder, like, if he has white supremacist fans, I'm sure he does, what they think of him saying, well, if you're stupid, then like I'd get rid of you too. It was weird. But yeah, there wasn't really any room to talk about it, and he would never shut the fuck up. There's a point where I was just begging him to please shut the fuck up, and he just wouldn't stop talking. And Ralph was doing shit to moderate it. So
yeah. It's weird because when you talk to people like that, you think that they're using race as a proxy for other bad things, but sometimes in those conversations you find out that people are using bad things as a proxy for race, which is really
exactly
weird.
Right. So that my conclusion was, yeah, either
I'm
you
asking
really
those questions like, okay, wait, so you don't like blacks because they're a standard deviation below whites, genetically speaking. Okay, well, what if we just made an IQ test to enter the country, and then we shipped out all the dumb blacks and all the dumb whites, and we just kept all the high IQ people? Some
and
people
that's
are going to be black.
But he said
usually
yes to
they
that.
won't. Yeah, usually they won't say yes to me on that. Usually they say, well, you can't test that; it's too hard. I think I might have even asked Vince this exact question. I don't know if anybody remembers the last time we talked, and I don't think he said yes to that. But we also were a bit more adversarial. So, but yeah.
I feel like I was definitely adversarial in the sense of like I was begging him to please shut the fuck up, but it wasn't like attacking his character. I was just like, I really want you to stop talking so much. Like, it's just like it's awful how long you're talking for. I really want you to stop, but he wouldn't stop.
But he's not there to engage with what you're saying. He has like a dialogue tree, and he kind of just wants to run down the tree.
Yeah, and so I foolishly let him do that, thinking I would kind of get a turn. And I never got it.
Yeah, because they just want you to agree or disagree, and then they move on to the next dialogue tree. They can't actually engage in any of their points. They just
No, and then a lot of the statistics he gave, I checked later, and like they're not true.
Or
so
they're
I'm
like half true, or they're missing a lot of context. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know a lot about Richard Spencer. I'm going to do my research, but my initial sense is that he hates stupid people. Genuinely.
No, I think he's going to be a bit more onto like this is our culture and our heritage and our ancestry.
Really?
I think so, more so than just like IQ. Yeah.
Okay. But it's our culture because it's the best culture.
No, it's just those are lame old Nazi arguments. Nobody uses those anymore. Instead of saying something is better, what they all say now is, well, no, it's different. I actually love white culture, but I also think black people should be able to have black culture. So if black people were in their own place to have their culture, and then we could be in our own place to have our own culture, everybody would be happier. That's generally how people do those.
And then how
arguments.
does he answer? Aren't there black people who like white culture and participate in it, and white people who? Isn't
They
there
can
like
do
a
that
lot
in
of?
their own white or black country, basically.
But so then why wouldn't we make the countries divided by culture instead of by race?
Because
Which is what
culture
we've
intrinsically-
already done.
Culture is intrinsically tied to race, is what he'll
But
say.
doesn't the fact that there are white people who like white rappers, doesn't that mean that culture is not tied to race, and that you can so like if you're saying if you take a white baby and raise it around only black people, that white baby will still have intrinsic white culture?
Yep. The way that they'll get this is they'll call something, they do this with IQ, they call it regression to the mean. That even if you took a bunch of people of a different ethnic background and you civilize them in another country, eventually they'll regress back to their default genetic culture or whatever. Yeah.
So and a white person, okay. Is there any evidence of that?
No. Or
Okay.
kind of, but
That just seems
it's
like
really
that just seems
it's
like
hard,
a
it's
made up
difficult, yeah.
a made up not true thing that
Yeah.
okay.
It's tiring. It comes across as a bunch of people that have like no purpose or meaning in life. So you kind of like look to wherever you can find it. And unfortunately, in society, for better or for worse, we've told black people, brown people, Asian people that like you can do this. It's cool to be really proud of your ethnic background. So people that are kind of like losers and are like, oh, but I'm African, my descendants, blah, blah. It's like, okay, but if you're white, you can't do that. Like, oh, I'm white. Like, oh, this is cool. It's like, nope. Now
well, I think
you're
that's
a
I do think that's fucked up. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree that white
So you get-
we should be able to be proud to be white, and you should be able to want white culture and talk about the betterment or success of the white race. I agree
Yeah,
with
potentially.
all that.
Just it gets more complicated though because white is a very weird category compared to other ethnic groups. But regardless of why people don't understand, that's why you get people that have nothing else. It's like, well, what about my ethnic background? Can I reach back to that and feel good about it? So I think that's where a lot of it comes from. It's basically like it's a bunch of sad losers that don't really have much in life, but now they found something to be proud of. Like, oh, my ancestors were fucking, Beethoven and and Aristotle and like this is my people.
But
yeah.
But do you also agree that black people who are proud of their black heritage and talk about it all the time are also a bunch of sad losers who want to be proud of their?
Yeah, I
whatever?
personally think it's all cringe as fuck. But fucking
So,
people. do what they do.
so, I guess what I'm saying is most.
It's
I
a
don't know
human
if it's
thing to do that. People.
Yeah,
like to
I
do
don't
that.
think it's fair to call them sad losers.
Yeah, I know it's not. You shouldn't. But you asked me personally how I felt when somebody
Yeah.
starts talking to me about the achievements of people that they had no relation to, that are, or I mean, like they don't know them, they didn't help them, you didn't do. I don't give a fuck who your ancestors are. That doesn't tell me shit about you. It tells me you're a loser because the only time. Hold on, I phrased that way too strongly. If you want to be proud,
You're
of
saying
your
this is how
culture
you
and heritage,
feel, not what
this
you
is how
think.
I feel. Yeah, I
You-
like
you
what
intellectually-
I do. I don't give a fuck
yeah.
about what my parents have done. I don't give a fuck
Right.
what my grandparents have done. I have my
Right.
accomplishments, my achievements, and who I am, and that's how I view other people. I don't care
Yeah,
what your daddy did or what your great 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 grandpa
Yes.
did. I don't care. Yeah.
I'm always asked to be happy or upset about what Jews have done.
Sure.
I don't care. I don't feel any. Or like I'll say I don't think America should be white and or try to stay white in that conversation. He was like, "What about Israel?"
Mhm.
I'm like, the same fucking thing. I don't think Israel should be an ethno state. I don't like the idea of a country being based on a race.
Sure.
So to whatever extent Israel is trying to keep itself like a racially pure nation, I have the same qualms.
Okay.
But it's assumed that because I am the same race or partly the same race that I'll be like, well, when it comes to my race, the survival and propagation of my race is super important to me. I just don't I don't care about your race.
Sure.
I don't really want to argue with Richard Spencer.
Okay.
I just want to understand. I basically want him to reconcile, like, do you understand, why do you think these views are so awful to people? Do you think they're lying like Vince James does and we all think the same thing? Or do you think they haven't thought it through? Do you think you're smarter? Do you think you're, I guess more honest or smarter or what? Like, how do you reconcile people thinking you're like evil? I think that's what I want to find out.
Okay.
advice, Hotshot?
Good luck. I think you're gonna be disappointed.
Why?
Interested people in general. It's all gonna come down to this ethereal, like, oh, like I'm proud of like the culture and the history of where my people came from, and like these are things that are important to me, and we should cherish, like the history and blah blah blah. Essentially, yeah.
So then I would say, what do you think about people being disgusted and horrified by that?
People being disgusted and horrified by that. It depends on if he goes the Nazi route or the non-Nazi route. If he goes the Nazi route, he's going to say that Jewish people are attempting to undermine a white person's pride in themselves and their ancestry, because by destroying white people, Jews basically get rid of the biggest threat to themselves, and it allows them to subjugate the rest of the world via multiculturalism.
Okay, wait.
If
So
they-
then,
yeah.
I would say, do you not think the same exact thing about Jews? Do you not want to undermine Jewish supremacy?
Oh
and their
yes, but
ability to...
they'll agree with you, and they'll say, oh no. They'll say, I'm not attacking Jewish people. I think what Jewish people do are great. I just want to be able to do for white people what Jewish people do for Jewish people.
Okay, so then I would say you believe that you are engaged in a race war against the
Yes,
Jewish
but the difference
people.
is Jewish people are actively engaged in race warfare with white people, but white
Mm-hmm.
people aren't allowed to acknowledge that race warfare is being engaged in against them. That's why
So I would
black
say
people
you
have
believe that-
pride, everybody else can have black, and everybody pride, but white people
Okay,
can have pride in
so
ourselves.
you believe you're losing a race war against Jewish people?
Yes, if he goes like the Nazi route, but I don't know if Richard Spencer is like an avowed Nazi anymore, so he might take another route for that conversation.
So if you're
I don't
losing
know.
a race war against Jewish people, do you not believe in survival of the fittest? Like, do you
they'll
think
say
you should?
yes,
do you
but they'll say that like the
do you
only
think that
reason
you
why the
should
Jews
lose?
they'll say the only reason why Jewish people are winning is because they're allowed to openly engage in race warfare.
How do
So
you
they're
think they became
advocating-
allowed to do that?
What brings you here?
Whose
how do they-
accomplishment is that?
Oh,
Aren't you trying to
World War
accomplish
II.
the exact?
World War II. So the argument is that the Holocaust is held up as this centerpiece of Jewish oppression,
And
the
so now
reason
Jews
why
can do
we're-
whatever they want.
Exactly. So they constantly hit you over the head with the Holocaust, saying 20 million Jews died. They exaggerate so much. There's no evidence. There's no proof. But once they use that as justification for Israel. Then they try to say everybody else is attacking them all the time. So they need to have all the control that they have in society. And anytime you criticize a Jewish person for anything, it's called anti-Semitism. So the Jewish people are allowed to sit at the top of the world hegemony, immune from criticism, constantly wielding the Holocaust as a weapon to prevent you from criticizing any of them. While they have their
And
own.
that, but
ethnic
isn't that the
state,
exact
it's how
same?
white people, yeah.
That's the exact same thing that you want then.
Safe travels.
Yes, but for white people, is what they would say.
Right.
Remember,
So
it's the old loser arguments are like white people are better than everybody and Jewish people are worse, blah blah blah. Instead, what they'll say is, I acknowledge Jewish people are awesome. What they're doing is awesome. I just wish that we as white people could do the same. is
So
what they'll say.
there's a race war. We just want to win.
Exactly.
May the stars guide you.
Yeah, and then I'll just get sad and say that I find that cynical.
Yep. But then he'll say, well, if one side is actively engaged in warfare and you don't want to see it, you're always going to be losing in that war. If he's going the Nazi route.
And
I don't know if
then,
he's
and then
gonna
I
go
will
the Nazi
say that I would rather lose.
All right. Well, then he'll say, well, that's sad because you've seen how bad historically the oppression has been against minorities in the United States. You're condemning yourself, your loved ones, and any future children to that same type of oppression. Because
Yes.
you see, like in South Africa, how blacks are treating the whites there now. Well, that's going to be the case in the United States. When whites become a minority, Hispanics and black people and Asians that are all allowed to advocate for their own racial pride are going to be oppressing and shitting on white people constantly like they do today, but they'll be doing it from a position of power instead of just on Twitter and in the media.
And I'll say, well, we'll have to peacefully march and hope they listen.
Well, then he'll say he probably doesn't want to be. He doesn't want it. He doesn't want there to need to be an MLK of white people because he likes the fact that white people don't have to deal with that right now.
Yeah.
Oh, God is
But
watching
also,
you.
again,
Be
I don't
careful.
know what Spencer's current arguments are. These are like traditional alt-right or Nazi or neo-Nazi arguments I've heard in the past.
But if
Spencer might
white
have a
people
different
needed
approach.
an MLK,
Spencer
say-
might be Spencer
I'll say
might be a newer
Destiny.
type. Yeah.
is the MLK of white people.
Spencer might be a different type of Nazi or a different type of white supremacist or white nationalist now because a lot of people that are in that community hate Richard Spencer. Richard Spencer is super hated among a lot of other white supremacist white nationalists because of some weird FBI shit. They think he's an informant and just weird shit. So he might be like totally different in how he approaches the argument now, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. He's like the leader, but not.
Not anymore, not for a long time. He's been kind of out of it.
But he's still the most like prominent. Yet.
How may I help?
Is Richard Spencer the most prominent?
David Duke.
Richard Spencer. David Duke is older. Richard Spencer might still be the most prominent. It's just
He's the
it's
only.
not really
He's the
his
only
popular
like
one.
white supremacist or white nationalist that I feel like is a household name.
Yeah, in Britain there's a guy called is it Tommy Robinson, or am I making that up?
I don't know.
That's a guy. Nick Fuentes might be more popular now than Richard Spencer. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I am honored.
Yeah, I assume it'll just go the same place that it went with Vince James, with me saying like I think that's immoral and depressing, and him saying, "Who gives a shit?"
Something that's really fun when people start going in on this shit. I can do this really well with music, but not with anything else because I suck at everything else. But whenever somebody's like, "Oh, well, I think that the white ancient European culture, whatever, is like so much better," blah blah blah. If you ask them about any of it, they don't know anything about it. Like people be like, I think we should be listening to the music of Mozart and Wagner. These are way better than the trash music that's today on the radio. It's like, oh, well, what are some of your favorite symphonies? And they won't be able to name a single fucking thing. It's like, okay, well, if you think this music's so good, you don't even fucking listen to it. So clearly you're lying to either me or yourself.
I don't want to make him look stupid.
Well, he's very good at talking. So if you're gentle with him, he's gonna talk through all of the good reasons why he's a white nationalist. You're gonna have to push in some area to make it a challenging conversation for him, or else he's just gonna.
I mean, if I can't, then I guess I mean, if he can convince me to be a white nationalist by the end of the conversation, then I will be. I guess.
Okay.
I mean, if I don't have anything to push back on, then I'll be like, well, I guess you're right.
I mean, he does rhetoric. That's what he specializes in. It's not gonna be like big debate, bro, fact-based conversations. It's gonna be like an empathetic appeal to defending your cultural heritage, basically.
Well, that's kind of what I want from him. I want, I guess I want to show other people that they're that neo-Nazis or white supremacists or whatever have reasons for feeling the way they do, and that and that they're not like they're not stupid. They're not stupid compared to everybody else. Like it's just the same shit that you're saying, where 99% of us will just say, I believe what my group believes, and that it's not there's not I don't think there's anything like particularly different about that ideology than anything else, other than I think it's like super immoral. But
yeah, but like, what's the goal then? Is the conversation just at the end? You want your whole audience to be like, you know what, white supremacists are actually kind of cool. Maybe you made a lot of good arguments. Like maybe we should be white supremacists. Is that the goal?
The goal is empathy. And I want to push back on his ideas from an empathetic position instead of saying,
okay, pushing back is okay. Here's the danger with empathy. Okay, this is a human thing. If you reject it, that's fine.
You said your channel's mission statement was empathy.
Sure. No, I didn't. I specifically didn't say that.
You said understanding each other. Understanding. Okay. Mine is empathy.
The reason why is because I don't think that people are generally capable of being empathetic without also condoning a behavior. I think that once people become empathetic towards somebody, I think they very quickly change into condoning mode. So you're gonna have to. So if you are gonna make somebody empathetic towards somebody's points of views, there's gonna be some big chunk of people that are also more understanding and a little bit like condoning of those points of views as well. Just be aware of that.
I think that even more specifically might be my channel's mission statement. To
make people support horrible points of view.
To get people to empathize with points of view that they do not hold.
Yeah, but you don't want them to believe those points of view, do you?
No, I want them to be able to empathize with it without believing it.
But won't they? Okay. I think that if I was having a conversation about white nationalism, I think the logical end of that conversation would be your audience should probably become white nationalists, because you have to be willing to push back on a lot of pretty big areas to escape these arguments, unless you don't care about that. But
well, I care more about the empathy.
Okay.
I have more faith than I'm more optimistic than you.
Okay.
Vince James was like, why do you think diversity is good? And I was like, because I was taught that.
Really bad argument,
but it's true.
I hope that's not true. If that's what you think, then you should probably change that belief, because it's garbage. Who cares if you were taught something, right?
Why do you think I should think diversity is good?
I think that having different, it depends on the area we're talking about, but I think generally getting like
Racial
different points of
diversity.
view. Well, no, but I mean like if it was a race to develop a new bomb to beat like another country, I don't care about like having racial diversity on that team. I might want a diversity of scientific ideas, but I don't give a fuck about that.
But
when it comes
what
to,
he was
running
talking
a
about, like
society-
in the neighborhood or in the
Yeah, no, that's
in
why
the
I'm saying it
country.
just depends. Yeah. So like societally speaking, I think that racial diversity is really cool because I think America has done a really good job at mixing and molding like a bunch of different cultures to create something that's pretty uniquely American that wouldn't be there without that type of like cultural mix. I think that like the fact that like America's biggest contributions to art in the world arguably came from slaves, right? Jazz and hip hop and R&B and rap or whatever you call it today, right? It's basically from slave culture, which is kind of like immigrants to the country. We brought in slaves and then it kind of fell up from there. A lot of the food that we eat in America, white nationalists will laugh and say, oh, I don't care about tacos, but like food is really important. We eat food 3 times a day. And we get a lot of food from other countries as well, which is like really important. If you ever think that like food isn't a big deal, you can go to the fucking United Kingdom and you can see what they eat for food.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, for sure. I've done that. But
Yeah.
if you took all those things away, I would still believe that diversity is good.
Nah, fuck
I
that.
would-
I don't think so.
I'm telling you, I was indoctrinated with this belief. It's like a religious belief. I believe that telling people they should separate by race is inherently wrong
Why?
because it's dehumanizing. It's telling you that the way
That's
you
not-
look, to me, I think it is. It's telling you that you are your shell, your shape, and the way you look is what categorizes you.
Well, you could literally just say it's like different people prefer different things, and it's nice to have our own little areas for each other. Like, would you say that it's wrong that 2 different families live in 2 different houses?
No, I was specifically raised to believe that racial segregation is wrong.
Why?
Why was I raised to believe the justification?
No,
there's
why-
no such
what is
thing
the
as there's no such
justification?
thing as separate but equal. And as soon as the government starts separating people into groups by race, they're hurting people. People, because unless you're actively doing that, some black people want to intermingle with some white people, and some Jews want to intermingle with whoever. And if you are telling them they can't, you're taking away their freedom.
What right do other minority groups have to access the wealth or resources that white people have accumulated or created in the United States?
I don't view. I was also taught to not view, even if everyone who's white has accumulated wealth. I don't see that as a group of white people.
Yeah, but
I
that's
was
how
also
that's how a white nationalist is.
absolutely, and so I'm saying that I was raised to not categorize people by race. So I don't see it that way. I see it as that group of people or whatever.
Okay, hold on. This is not true. You obviously can see race in people, right?
I can see race, but I don't think in the terms that you're describing.
Sure.
I don't
And you
I don't
might
think
not-
about
I
my
understand. And you
I don't
might
think
not.
about my people.
But do you acknowledge that you would be at a disadvantage if you were the only group that wasn't allowed to, but everybody else was? Because the argument would be black people see themselves
Absolutely.
as a collective.
They
yeah,
do.
So he's going to
They
argue
do.
that it's a
yes.
self-defeating like phenotype. Like this is something that's going to go extinct because
Yes,
you don't have any self-preservation.
I completely agree that black people are taught by progressives to see themselves as a collective, while also simultaneously being taught that they are not a collective and that individuals should not be held for the actions of the average black person or statistics or whatever, which is a weird mixed message. And I also agree that white people are taught that if they see themselves as a collective, they're bad or evil. And I think that's wrong.
Not ready yet.
Okay.
But I'm just saying for myself, when asked point blank, why do you believe diversity is good? I'm like, I was just taught that it's good, and that if you segregate people by race or treat people differently based on their race, you are doing an act of evil. Racism is bad because I was taught it was bad. I think that is kind of like the bedrock. I can do what they do and reverse engineer an explanation with statistics, but even if none of those statistics were true,
Out of range. I don't have enough
Yeah,
I
I'm
would
just saying that that explanation is like, that is not your axiomatic bedrock. That's like a highly abstracted position. Racism is bad. Like you'll get pushed on that. I mean, it's your conversation, but he's gonna push on it a lot, of course.
That's fine, but I don't see how you can't really push past it. I can just say if you think
Well,
it's,
because the problem is the goal then is going to be to make it look like you haven't thought about this enough. So his position is correct by default because he's considered the ramifications of other people being racist, whereas you haven't engaged with that idea yet.
yeah, so I guess I'll say, okay, then walk me through it and see if you can change my position that racism is bad. I don't think you can, and I think you're underestimating the number of people who this is why people don't want to hear your diatribes, because it doesn't matter. Even if everything you say is true, they still think racism is bad, and you need to find a way if you want to reach.
Here's how. Okay, let's walk through it. Okay, I agree that racism is bad. Okay, if nobody in the world was racist, that would be awesome. But the problem is everybody has their in-group versus out-group preferences. And the problem is right now there is a very contrived dialogue in the world that prevents white people from advocating for themselves, while Jewish people, black people, and Hispanic people, and Asian people, and other ethnic groups are all allowed to advocate for themselves.
Agreed.
So if we could have a world where there was no race, if we could have a world where there's no racism, that'd be great. But in a world with racism, where everybody's using it to protect their own groups, white people ought to be able to protect themselves using the same tools that everybody else does.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that.
So then why do you disagree with my desire to carve out a nation solely for white people, where we can trade and have cultural influence outflow with other countries? Other countries would be restricted to their own ethnic majorities that they want.
A few reasons.
Okay.
One, I'm in this country. So to me, that would be destroying what I love about the country. I don't want to see that happen here. I don't want us to become...
Let's say that there are two futures of this country. Let's say that one future is where 10 years from now...
I would say this is a false dichotomy, and that I see another future. I see an optimistic future that you don't believe
Why
in.
would you be optimistic when everywhere in the media it's okay to shit on white people, when black people are getting reparations, when they're teaching CRT in the schools for children to hate themselves, when we're constantly taught that America and Christopher Columbus are the bad guys, when Native Americans are worshipped, when slaves are worshipped, when all the descendants of all these other oppressed groups are worshipped, they're all allowed to advocate for themselves. How do you see an optimistic future for white people when it's only gotten worse and worse for white people?
I would say that I am in a unique position to push back against that, and that I do.
Push back. It doesn't matter if you push back against it. The entire culture is against you. So rather than you
but
doing
cultures
anything,
change. How long has it been this way for?
Yeah, but what is the direction the culture's been changing? Are white people becoming more accepted? Like just a few years ago, it was considered a racist thing to just say it's okay to be white.
I understand that, but that's because white people have historically been the oppressors. But this is a oversimplified and ultimately racist anti-white way of framing things, and it's not good enough.
Sure,
and so I can understand.
The mainstream narrative. You're saying that, and this is the problem.
Absolutely, the mainstream narrative. I'll agree. The mainstream narrative needs to change. You want to change the mainstream narrative to let's accept an ethno-state, and I want to change it to let's stop being racist against white people.
Yeah, but nobody's going to do that because they've already accepted.
No one's
going to
fucking do yours either. Mine is much more realistic than yours.
No, yours is absolutely not realistic.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that
There's
at
a
all.
whole history. You just stated it. You've already believed the propaganda, and now you're spinning it like it's an original thought. You bought into the system so hard. White people have a whole history of oppressing other people, which they do, and that's unfortunate. It's wrong. But that history is going to constantly use to justify the oppression of white people going forward. That history is not going to change. So why would people change their view of white people going forward? Why do you think it's more realistic that we're going to be nice to white people in the future?
Because you're not your collective. You are not your ancestors. You're not your race.
We are not our collective because white people aren't allowed to be collective, but Hispanics
I don't
are
think
collective, black people are collective,
I,
Asian people are collective.
And I think we need to. I don't think they should be, and I think that.
So do you think that you can argue against Black Lives Matter, and you're going to say, well, black people aren't all the same? That can't be a collective.
I have, and I do.
But how successful do you think that is?
How successful can I do it? How successfully can I'll say this. In my Black Lives Matter video, I've not received a single negative comment from a black person.
I don't care about your negative comments. Here's the reality. January 6th was compared by mainstream politicians to being on the same level of Hiroshima. And nobody will condemn the BLM riots that happened for 2 years that caused billions of dollars
You can condemn them, and I can condemn them.
But your condemnation is going to lead to a future where white people are oppressed and whose children are being oppressed, whereas I want a future where white people can carve out a
How does
small
my
area for
condemnation
themselves.
of Black Lives Matter lead to a future of
Because it's
white
hollow
people?
and empty and no one else agrees with you.
Well, that's why we need more people to stop being hypocrites and put our foot down and say we have to reject all forms of racism, because
The
if we
only
don't,
way that you're going to do that is by at least meeting me halfway and saying, well, you should be at least able to advocate for the interests of white people. But if you do that, people are already going to declare you as a Nazi.
but I'm a Jew, and I'm going to say, Mr. Spencer, I think I can help you with this, because they're not going to call me a Nazi. Nazis killed my family. They're not going to call me a Nazi if I say that white people
They absolutely could call you.
Well,
a
fine,
Nazi,
they can
of
call me a
course.
Nazi if they want, but it's going to fall flat. Listen, if people can't convince the general public that I'm a pedophile, they're sure as fuck not going to convince them that I'm a Nazi. So I'll say, listen, you do whatever you want. If you think it's more realistic that you make a fucking a white ethno state in America, have fun. You already admit that you're losing ideologically and just in terms of sheer numbers. I think it will be much more easy as minorities rise to a more equal position in America to tell them to stop being racist to white people, and as white people diminish in power and size.
Where's the evidence for this ever happening, ever? Look at what's happening with women in college. Women are out-graduating men 60% to 40% now. Do you hear anybody saying, okay, maybe women need to slow down? Maybe it's time to advocate for men? Or look at what happens when we talk about crack epidemics all over.
Yeah, I do. There are men's rights activists.
Where are the
Absolutely.
people talking about? Yeah, but MRAs are universally panned on the internet. They're seen as misogynists, right? Or look
So
at the
then let's
Midwest.
fucking
How long has the Midwest
you-
been dealing
you-
with things like methamphetamine and stuff? But nobody
Wait.
seems to care about that.
Okay,
Nobody's talking about
I-
these issues as much as they do about issues relating to minority communities. And
I
for
think
some
that
reason,
I think that you and I are both in a position to put out ideas that will change these things.
Okay.
I think you're too pessimistic. And I think Richard Spencer is super I think he's just so you're too fucking
I think he'll be
cynical.
super realistic. He'll say, why do you think that black people and Hispanic people are better than white people?
They're not.
Okay, well, when white people historically were in power, they oppressed other minority groups. Would you agree that there's some oppression that exists even today in the United States against other minority groups?
I agree that if you have a group of black people who is able to oppress a white person, there is a very high chance that they will.
Yes, thank you. That's my entire argument. So
I
if
agree.
we give the majority power to these other groups, which is rapidly happening in the United States, they're just
Of
going to be
course.
oppressing whites like whites historically were oppressing blacks and Hispanics.
And I will say that my goal has been and always will be to try to get people to stop being racist. Not to stop being racist to me or to a certain group, but overall. And I'll
Okay,
say,
then you're
don't
gonna
you
be
think?
one of the
I'll say,
farmers-
will you concede that it would be better if nobody was racist?
It
That-
would
the
be, but
idea-
that's not what's going to happen. You're going to be one of the farmers in South Africa getting killed by one of the black people taking revenge for what happened.
And I'm saying that I
historically.
believe this so firmly that I would prefer that.
That's
I would
easy for you
prefer.
to say, but for
I would
those of us that
rather
have
die
families-
in a race war than win.
Yeah, but some of us have children or families or friends that we don't want to see die in a race war. We'd rather all just move in Vermont and then make a white majority state and just have that area to ourselves. Why is that so wrong?
Because it's paranoid and it's cynical.
How
and
is it
it's- and
paranoid
it's-
when I
it's
can look
lim- it's
around
a
the
fir-
world?
it's-
No, you already
it's-
agreed that there was an oppression, there was an attack against white people in the United States. You said that you've made videos.
I don't
talking
think it's on the
against
level of a Holocaust.
it. Not yet.
Holocausts are not that common.
They're not, but it doesn't have to be on the level of a Holocaust. I think the
I just
BLM
don't-
rockets
I
are
just
pretty
think it's
sure
a-
how much damage could happen against white property without
I think
anybody
it's
caring about it.
I think it's a sad, depressing ceiling to put on our own growth as a species.
You can say that, but I think it's sad that white
People used to
can't
kill
just
each
have
other
their
for
own
being
area.
people used to kill each other for being the wrong kind of Christian.
Sure, they did.
And in some
That's
countries,
all
they
the
still
stronger
kill-
argument that some of our in-group, out-group preferences can't be denied. It's a biological reality that, for some reason, white people are the only ones that can't take note of it.
Yeah, I think that they should be able to take note of it. But I think that we have
And
shown
that's all
as
I
a,
want. That's
think
all I'm
we've-
asking, just for us to be aware of it. That's it.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, then yes, I think we should. But from there, I think that my vision, even though it's more optimistic and more vulnerable, of moving past a world of ethno-states, that we have airplanes so people can fly around the world and fuck each other and change races and mingle in a way that we couldn't. So when this kind of thinking was dominant and like it would be unthinkable to challenge it, we can communicate better, we can intermingle better, we can travel better. I think it's almost inevitable that we're going to move past racism and ethno-states. I would like to do it in the way that is the most ethical for everybody, including white people. And I think that you're trying to go back in time because you're just afraid you're going to get genocided.
Okay.
I don't think Richard Spencer's going to do the okay thing. You think he will?
No, he's going to keep pushing in the same points, but I think it sounds like you've lost the whole argument. Because you're basically saying, like, well, I'm hoping for the future, but everybody that's, like, in the media environment around us is looking around and they're seeing, fuck white people, BLM did no wrong, January 6th was like Hiroshima, South African black people are murdering white people as a response to apartheid.
Yeah, so I think
so you're everything that you're saying is going to sound like idealistic hogwash, like,
he wants to. It is idealistic. I think it's idealistic, but I think it also might be actually more realistic. But I'm going to just say, I think if we hit this impasse, I'll say, I'm going to go to bat for anybody who is impacted negatively by racism, including white people, and I already have. This is already something I talk about in my work, and I will continue to talk about it, and I will continue to spotlight it, and that's why I'm here talking to you, because I care, and I think I can get other people to understand, and I think I can get them to care too. And if you are unmoved by this and you want to keep pushing for your retarded ethno-state, go for it. Like, I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I think my way is better for everybody. And I don't think that I think I'm in a position where I can advocate for disenfranchised white people without being called a Nazi.
Okay.
And maybe I'll ask him if he thinks I should do that, if he wants me to. If he thinks there's a better way to do it. I don't know.
Well, listen, I'll probably watch. Wait, when is that conversation happening?
Friday at 9:30 Eastern.
Friday. What is today? Yeah, hopefully I'll be streaming.
Jesus Christ! Spencer!
You know, gotten into discussions with Vaush and Destiny kind of from that world.
Vaush. Hitler is a villain in history books, in American history books. Was he one of the villains that you liked? I'm a big Mel Gibson fan.
We have one thing in common. It is taken out of context. It's a worse side of me.
And done.
What's the difference between a Wignat and a Griper? There were so many ways that we could have dog whistled this effectively. Not even dog whistle, but just been a little bit more subtle. But okay, fuck it, right out the gate. All right.
Yeah, we usually do start at 10.
I understand the F-bombs, please. Please don't. I don't need you to spam this a million fucking times. I've heard about this a million fucking times. Okay, thank you.
I was gonna say Richard doesn't usually miss them. I was like, oh.
Callers aren't till the end of this thing, right?
Okay, all right, well, good. Well, okay, so I did talk to him. Thought it started at 10. To be fair to him, we usually do start at 10. The last one, matter of fact.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, a lot of times when I bring on guests, they come on at 10. So that's pretty normal. He said, hey, sorry, thought we're starting at 30. 1 sec. So shouldn't be too long. Maybe we'll bring Dalton in as a caller later. You said you want to talk to Richard, really. So if we have time for a caller segment, I don't really see much limits on what we're doing here. Let me switch tabs.
I had an echo earlier. Do I still have? No, I don't hear it anymore. I think I'm good.
No, you sound fine. And for those who don't know, we're not even gonna do. I don't really see a point. Well, maybe we'll still do intros just to like introduce each, the two people, right, to each other.
I guess.
But it's not a debate. It's not a debate. Well, I mean, that's just you have to have some type of structure. But other than that, I don't really think I'll just be referee or whatever, and kind of just a discussion on wherever it goes. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen really.
Me neither. I don't know either. I just wanna get to know him, I guess, and like try to try to understand him in a way. So I guess like I want people to understand each other. So if he and I can understand each other, that would be a step in the right direction, I think.
Now I want to say this: when we switch tabs here, it's going to say versus, because I don't have a special set for.
I understand.
I am gonna get that set though, because we've had discussions like this before where a person was like, you know what, I don't really want it to be versus or whatever, and then we've had verses that end up actually just being discussions too.
Right.
But I want to be clear, this is not really a debate or a versus type situation. It's just a discussion, but I had to do that because of the setup of the cameras and all that. So there he is, right on time. Right on. Mr. Spencer, how you doing, sir?
Is there a better way to do this? I'm assuming this is.
Hey, how are you? I apologize.
It's all good. No, it's completely fine. Don't even worry about it, because we usually bring people on at 10 anyway. When you said that, I was like, yeah, you know what? That's completely.
Well, that's usually what you do. So really, this is entirely your fault.
Yeah, right. I'll just take the blame. Okay, now, now let me see if I can get you guys pinned on the screen here. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that too.
Yeah. Okay. So I got you.
Are there splitters in this game?
Need assistance? Off and away.
I'll get it. I'll need you on the right. So yeah, that's
I'm so
okay. Now say
stupid.
something, Max.
Yo, hello.
Okay, no. I got it. All right. Oh no, wait. Did I pin? I actually pinned the wrong one. Okay. This is like, I'm gonna have to figure this out better. All right, now say something.
Yo, hello. Test.
There you go. All right, now I got you pinned. Now, Richard, you say something. Richard, your camera, I don't know if it's on or not, but.
I just turned it on, actually, and I'm seeing it on my screen.
There you go. I got you. No need to waste some more time. I'll let you, since you've been here, Max, and Richard just got here, he's getting his bearings a little bit, still probably getting everything figured out. I'll let you start off. Again, not a debate, it's just a discussion, but I still figured we'd have a little minimal intro, whatever, introduce yourselves or whatever.
Sure. I'm Mr. Girl. I'm a YouTuber. I'm a rapper. I'm a Twitch streamer, and I guess my content's mostly about trying to bridge political divides and get people to empathize with and understand each other. And so I'm obviously very interested in talking to Mr. Spencer here about that, as people have a lot of trouble empathizing with him and accuse him of being unempathetic himself. So I think I'm just, it's interesting to me.
Good. Yeah, it's my pleasure to talk with you, Mr. Girl. I am huge on TikTok, Twitch, and Snapchat, and all those platforms. I am just well known and beloved. Just kidding.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So no, I'm Richard Spencer. I am who I am. I guess we can see if I fit the DSM-5 category of a sociopath after this conversation is done.
Fact check. The DSM-5 doesn't have sociopath or psychopath anymore. They actually deprecated all these, and it's all under the umbrella term of antisocial personality disorder. I know that because my ex-lover that I was in a long-term fulfilling relationship with was a psychology student.
I do have a lot of empathy, though.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you, like, how personal of a conversation do you want to have? Or I've noticed that I watched a bunch of your interviews, and people kind of attack you out of the blue. Like, they'll try to get you to let your guard down, and then throw something in about your personal life, and then bring it back to politics, and then they're constantly just trying to like jerk you around, and I find it very ugly, and I don't want to do that. So you know what I mean? I'm trying to match my camera angle with yours. 1 second.
Yeah, we could get personal. I would just say, you know, there are certainly some things that I don't want to talk about or something like that. But if you're acting in good faith, problem.
I'm gonna try to ask everything in good faith. I have had issues with people thinking I'm not in good faith when I am. So if I say something or bring something up that you just don't want to talk about, but like just tell me. Like I don't want to do the thing where if you say I don't.
This setting the tone is actually really effective. He comes out of the gate saying like I'm gonna try to be empathetic towards you, and then he's trying very. I don't know if he listens to anything I say or if he's just figured this out on his own. But this idea here of like out the gate being like, hey, how personal do you want to go? Okay, well, hey, if you feel like I'm being too personal, just let me know. If you feel like I'm trying to gotcha, just let me know. I want blah blah blah. You can see that like these are learning from the mistakes of like Lawrence Southern, where he gets very personal, doesn't give her way out, or Vosh, where he tried to talk to him, but Vosh like clearly wasn't ready to go into like hard questions related to like age of consent or child, porn or whatever, right? He's doing a really good job at setting a proper expectation at the beginning here and coming across, even if he's not going to be good faith, at coming across as good faith. This is a really good job here.
Want to answer that, then I'm like smirking and I'm like, oh well, of course he doesn't want. Like I don't want to do that shit.
Right. No, I understand. No, I mean I don't. Yeah, I don't really have anything to hide, and there's some there's some things that are just kind of nasty, personal, or so on that have been made public to some degree, or there are rumors about it, or insinuations or vague accusations, and I'd rather not just like delve into those things.
Okay. So if I do, just let me know.
Sure.
Your David Pakman interview. Do you remember that?
I definitely remember doing it. I remember a few moments from that.
Yeah, he was like a dick.
I don't remember it that way, actually. I don't think it was the worst.
That ability isn't
Maybe you're used to it.
I am used to it. I mean, I think when I make a little bit of a breakthrough with a liberal, I think I count it.
Oh, okay, I see. He was less of a dick than you thought he was going to be, so your bar is very low.
A bit. I don't remember him being the biggest dick, to be honest. But maybe what is it? As time goes on, the past becomes more golden and the future becomes more gray or blind.
Coronavirus is taking over, guys.
I love Watchmen. It's my favorite book.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not my favorite. It's definitely up there, though. I think it's a great graphic novel, and I thought Zack Snyder's movie wasn't faithful in some ways, but I think it was very, very cool.
It was cool, but it did not capture the magic.
Yeah. There are a couple of things I could go into with it. I think he kind of gentiled Watchmen in a way. It's kind of more interesting when those characters are Jewish.
Jesus Christ! Spencer! There were so many ways that we could have dog whistled this effectively. Not even dog whistle, but just been a little bit more subtle. But okay, fuck it, right out the gate. All right.
It's Zack Snyder. Well, I mean, I think it adds another layer that was intended by the author, and Zack Snyder, in his way, took that layer away. But
it's too far away.
I still think I actually like Zack Snyder a lot.
I like half of his films. Some of them are pretty bad, I think. They all look great, though.
Yeah, and they're kind of bombastic and 80s montage. I thought Man of Steel was a really good movie, although I didn't like it when I first saw it. But I appreciated it later for what he was trying to do, full on Jesusification of Superman. And I liked the Snyder Cut, which I saw recently, and I think some of his movies are maybe almost like, I saw his zombie film on Netflix, and it was, I don't know, kind of bubblegum, like I don't really remember anything about it. It was just Zack Snyder, amazing shots and bombastic action, but no there really. But I think he's an interesting
way. But you were born the same year as Richard Donner's Superman.
That is true. Is it 1978? Is that when that movie came out?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, thereabouts.
That has to be, you do like that better than Man of Steel, right?
No, I think I would prefer Man of Steel.
Wow.
But I do
Okay.
like Donner's film. It's
Well,
a good
that's
movie.
the most upsetting view I've ever heard you espouse.
And hopefully this interview will be good then, if that's the most upset I make you.
No, it won't. It's going to be ugly, but you just are underestimating how upsetting that is. Do you know anything about me?
I know a little bit about you. I've watched some videos of yours from YouTube.
Okay.
And yeah, I would say that one of them that I watched was quite negative, but and I've seen you know, gotten into discussions with Vaush and Destiny, kind of from that world.
Vaush.
Yeah.
Why do people call him
I
Vaush?
take every
Are they trying to troll him, or are they?
As they are, you know, it doesn't matter in a way where you're coming from. It's how you're speaking to me right in this moment. Can I have a conversation with you? So
all right,
it's
cool.
not a big deal.
Thanks. Okay, so in kind of broad strokes, my understanding is that your stance is that anti-white sentiment is on the rise. It is actually this was your stance. I don't know if you still are aligned with this, but I'm going to try to, in broad strokes, say my understanding.
Sure.
Anti-white sentiment is on the rise. It's basically okay to hate white people in progressive or liberal culture. It's okay to discriminate against white people in certain situations. And you're disturbed by this. You want an ethno-state at some point down the line, as do many other races, in your view. And in Israel for white people.
Okay. I mean, do you want me to go? Because I feel like I don't disagree profoundly with anything what you just said. I think that I would have some more nuanced takes
of course.
on all of those things.
I know.
And I think there's also a tendency, I mean, it's less so now. Now the spotlight's not on me, and I'm able to dilate on things and be kind of self-critical and maybe question presumptions that I had. But, you know, when people got to know me in 2016 and 2017, it was exactly as you say. You know, It was like white people were rising up. We had enough. We're not going to take it anymore. And Trump is our existentialist president, basically.
Right.
You know, that's what you said is fair. I would bring a lot of nuance to all of those things that you just said, though.
Okay.
Because in many ways, we hate ourselves more than anyone else hates us. But go on.
White people?
Yes, I think the white guilt complex is profound, and we can't really understand these questions without addressing that. But
yeah, that disturbs me, and I don't like. Okay, so I'm very anti-identitarian. I would say that is probably the biggest break that I have with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm from Amherst.
Mm-hmm.
And
more like and.
I feel like you probably know.
I'm sorry, that was
what that
bad.
means.
I'm done. I'm sorry.
Oh yes, I visited Amherst back in my high school days.
I can't think of a town that would hate you more than Amherst. Right? Like I feel like there's.
But then in a weird way, is there a town like I'm at home in those places as well? You know?
Yeah, because they're very identitarian too.
Well, they're identitarian, but I'm not talking about ideology. Like just in the kinds of places where I would like to live, and
college,
where I would,
New
where I
England
would
college town.
appreciate, where I would appreciate the little cafe and appreciate the used bookstore and appreciate the kind
I used to work at the used
historical
bookstore.
preservation. Yeah, I think that's one of the places where I would actually feel at home in a way. But I take
it's a very American place. If American places can be more or less American. So, yeah I was raised to believe that diversity is good, racial identification is bad, and then quickly accept when black people do it. Then it's okay. And when Jews do it, an ethno-state is okay. So my reaction to that was to say, well, I don't think any of it's okay. So I'm anti-identitarian across the board.
That's
I don't
fair
want to
and
be
consistent.
Yeah, I don't want to be part of a group. I don't want to be in the club. I don't want to be in the club with other Jews or fucking anybody. I don't want to be a Democrat. I feel I'm anti like faction basically.
Aren't you going to get bulldozed with that attitude though? Because at the end of the day, we live in a society and we live on a planet. We live in
Oh shit, he's making the arguments, but he's prepared, okay? Mr. Girl's prepared for these, right?
world of groups, and groups dominate. And so even if you, and I actually take you at your word, I think you sincerely believe that, but is that really a good choice? You know?
No.
And are
Not
you
really.
kind of, are you, is that a
Oh,
kind
no,
of
he's just gonna
luxury
bite
that
all the
you
bullets.
have
Yes.
as an American in the 21st century?
Not just
And
as an
my-
American, but as me
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
I think that I'm able to intermingle very successfully with different groups of people. Probably I can read people very well and communicate with people very well, and I don't get along with everybody, but I don't really need the sort of like buffer that being part of a group gives you.
Mhm.
And I also am willing to, like you, absorb large amounts of vitriol from any limit, more people than there are on Earth. So I'm fine with that. So I'd say those two things, those make me privileged in a way, where I don't need a group, and so I understand why other people would want one or might need one, but also. We're all going to get bulldozed. So I view it as what do you want to be doing? What do you want to smear on the pavement after the bulldozer goes over you? What shape would you like it to be? And to bring us back to Watchmen, you know, when you get exploded in the snow, what do you what
happy smiling face? Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not
so like
I'm more interested in being the person who's driving the bulldozer over you.
yes,
That's kind of
absolutely. I see you have a very dog eat dog world view.
It's about winning. I mean, whatever you want to say about Trump, and I totally rejected Trump, but
You like the
I
winning
think
part.
they're well, yeah. I mean, that's what life is about.
It's about winning.
It's about winning, and it's you know, you work within a group to the extent that that group is going to gain more power and have dominate other groups. And if you're not in this to win it, if you're not in this to ultimately dominate the entire planet, then what are we doing really talking about
Getting
politics?
dominated.
Because politics isn't consensual. It's not art. Politics is about the domination of the physical world, and in some ways the mental and spiritual world as well. I mean, I hate to put it in such brutal terms, but that's
I don't know if you
what it's
do.
about.
I feel like you sort of do like putting it in brutal terms. I don't quite believe you there.
Good luck.
Because it's provocative. I think you enjoy the provocation of putting it in brutal terms.
Sure.
Yeah. I see what there is an annoying duality to America's view of itself in the world, where we're going